And good morning to everyone out there. It is September 19th. It is a football Sunday. We are coming to you on a weird time for us because, well, I had other things to do Friday and Saturday. I am, of course, flying Ryan Gokers along with
Tampa Motor Mouth, Joel Overall, and of course, where you were yesterday, you have to go. It's a small world after all.
that one.
It's a small world, right? Then that's the obligatory song.
I mean, we were at a different park in the network of those, but yes, that's accurate. My wife is a freak; she loves it, so we go more often than we really need to. But you get the passes; actually not that expensive if you just plan it the right way. But Friday night we were at the Rays game, a good walk off. I don't know why my camera's so bouncy today. That's fun.
You didn't go to that Disney hotel, Star Wars hotel that costs a bloody fortune, I think, for like 2 nights or something. That's like absolutely ridiculous.
No, I don't think that's even open yet, but that is an absolutely ridiculous thing. So what has happened since our last show? We've had our Thursday night game. We'll break that down. I've got a new pet peeve that'll be my final thoughts. Yeah, going out in public and seeing the fans back is very good, but there are some things that I did not enjoy about the Rays fans or baseball fans in general. And we will go over our week.
Something else other than the wave?
You don't got to spoil it, Joel.
Okay.
Part of it's the wave. Part of it's definitely the wave. All right, so we're going to start with our Thursday night recap. It was the Giants losing 29-30. The Turds come out on top, which is why I'm wearing the obligatory, not official Turds, because you can see the name is slightly different. But the right colors for the Turds. They win on a last-second, second chance field goal. You don't go off sides in the last-second field goal attempt. You just don't do it, Joel. So Washington wins 30-29. I think a much more compelling game than we were expecting.
Are you absolutely shocked that Daniel Jones was not owned in the 10 team and OG Tom had him in the 16 team, and I bet he had to wince through that night, especially when you had that one touchdown that was called back because of the penalty. Anytime you're going, oh man, that's a beautiful play, that doesn't count.
I mean, he still got a good yardage on that play. So we'll start with Daniel Jones and the Washington Giants, or the New York Giants.
Washington Giants?
The Washington Turds and the New York Giants. It's 9:30 in the morning. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. We don't normally do this time for a reason. Usually that reason is I'm working. But
Ryan is just still suffering from being on I-4 yesterday.
Yeah, it's never a fun experience. Fortunately, my wife was driving, and she did not have a fun experience. So, all right. Back to football.
Is that when you lose track of the number of birds that you exchange with other drivers?
When you fall asleep in the car and you're woken up by slamming your brakes multiple times. So much fun. All right, Daniel Jones, 22 of 32 passing, 249 yards and a touchdown. But he added in 9 carries for 95 yards and a touchdown, 29.46 fantasy points, which is a pretty good number, especially in a 16-teamer. I could definitely use that with the Darnold Wentz proposition I have this week.
And Barkley, not bad, but not great.
13 carries for 57 yards, chipped in 2 catches for 12, totaled about 8.9 fantasy points. Not first-round production, but on the other side didn't do that great either, and I'm much higher on him.
Booker and Penny should not be on any fantasy radar right now.
No, unless Barkley gets hurt, Booker and Penny have no rights. Someone who should be rostered everywhere is Sterling Shepard. 9 catches for 94 yards, 18.4 fantasy points. He seems like the go-to guy there. Darius Slayton did get 3 catches for 54 yards and a touchdown, getting a decent day at 14.4 points. But Shepard's the receiver you seem to want. Galladay
and Slayton might be an interesting pickup if he's not rostered.
Yeah, in our 16-teamer, I'm pretty sure he is. I know I picked him up a lot of places last week. He didn't necessarily make my lineup last week, but maybe he will be going forward. Then we go to the Turds. Taylor Heineke, 34 for 46, 336.
How about the former XFL quarterback doing good?
Yeah, he gets the win, 20.04 fantasy points. and definitely solid. He made McLaurin relevant again. Terry McLaurin, 11 catches, 107 yards, and a touchdown. He's on my Mega Bowl team. 27.7 fantasy points. I think I might have created an accidental monster in my Mega Bowl team, which is a good thing.
Can I bring up the elephant in the room?
Yeah.
Can I bring up the running back who has the initials AG? I know you don't want to really talk about him, but that happened.
We're going to get there. So let's start with a positive. Average over 5 yards per carry for Antonio Gibson. 13 for 69 yards. Chipped in 2 catches for 4 yards. 9.3 fantasy points. However,
SpongeBob meme.
However, J.D. McKissick, the troll, the goblin, the terrible human being that he is for all of us Gibson owners, 4 carries for 10 yards and a touchdown. 5 catches for 83 yards, a total of 20.3 fantasy points in PPR. Now, all the Gibson owners need to take a breath. He's going to be bad again next week when they play Buffalo. I'm just throwing that out there in advance. Don't be surprised when he's bad next week against Buffalo. After that, it gets a lot better.
McKissick got the rushing. Hold your nose for 2 weeks.
Yeah, 1 more week and you should be fine. McKissick did get the rushing touchdown in the 2-minute drill, which will be McKissick's role for the most part. And it was an audible play. It was supposed to be a pass. If they'd have expected to run it, I think Gibson would have been in there. Yeah, 4 carries means Gibson is going to get the groundwork at the very least.
I had Scary Terry in both leagues, so that's one of the times you're checking your rosters and you're going, oh, yeah, you're doing the dub.
Yeah, that was a good play for McLaurin for sure. But the 5 catches for 83 yards, he did break off 2 long receptions. I don't want anybody to get too freaked out over McKissick. If you're in the 16-teamer that we are, maybe McKissick is a flex play, but probably not something you're going to want to count on.
Is Ricky Seals-Jones worth the waiver wire at all?
Yeah, that helps no one. No, do not pick up Ricky Seals-Jones because Logan Thomas is still there. He had 5 for 45 yards. He had a solid game for a tight end. Nothing really exciting, but nothing to sneeze at. He was solid. 9.5 fantasy points from a tight end.
And we're sort of dealing with the whole waiver wires. You actually did snag 1 share of Elijah Mitchell, so I know you have to be happy at least when it comes to the fab.
I don't think I paid anything for him. I don't remember, honestly. I'm in so many leagues, I don't remember all of the small details. So that was in our 10-team Sports Shuffle Fans League, I believe. As I'm trying to go and make sure I got him for nothing. It's great just watching.
And $5 Footlong actually snagged him in the 16-team.
And he paid 60. I do remember seeing that one because I was interested to see how much he would go for. And he got him for 60, which not a small total. Let's see. Elijah Mitchell, I don't see a fab claim. So maybe we're not doing fab. Are we not doing fab in that league? We need to be doing fab in that league if we're not.
And I end up getting up in the flea flicker, but it's kind of interesting when you see the Trey Sermon news come out, and you have to wonder, after all the Elijah Mitchell hype, is Trey Sermon going to take away any of that fantasy value after all the hype?
I think so. I really do. I think Mitchell's a good ad. I think Hasty's a decent ad. I think I got Hasty in the 16-teamer. But Mitchell plays special teams. Hasty plays special teams. That was why they got the start over Trey Sermon last week, because they didn't want to have 4, 5, 6 backs active. This week, it is kind of more you need a number 1 back, and I think Trey Sermon might get a lot of that load. Mitchell should get some touches, but don't be surprised if Sermon makes that waiver fab claim look real, real nasty here in a little bit. All right, so that covers our Thursday night game.
As it turned out, was better game than we thought it was going to be. That was like they thought they were, but they let us off the hook.
Yeah. All right, so we
attempted Bears quote by Coach Hamlin.
Yeah, we will go
it's 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, it's early. We're just here so we don't get fined. I mean, I kind of want to talk about my Mega Bowl team, but I don't think that's important right now. It's okay. It's okay. My number 3 receiver is Adam Thielen.
That sounds like you're channeling a little bit of the airplane. A hospital, what is it? It's a place where sick people go, but that's not important right now.
Yeah. So we will go through our picks. Spoiler alert, a lot of agreement this week. We did get Thursday night right. We both picked
Some of
Washington.
these choices, you have one choice and you look at the other choice, and all logic suggests you cannot pick that other choice.
Yeah, there are a few games this week that are just got the shaking done, that are just obvious, but we will go through them one at a time as we normally do. And we'll start with the New England Patriots and the New York Jets, two teams coming off a loss, going head to head in New Jersey, because that's where the Jets play. Joel, who do you got in this one?
Yeah, this one I just I have about 3 points here. That Jets are worse than they thought they were. New England outgained Miami by 134 yards. The Jets allowed pressure in 17 dropbacks. Wilson was 5 and 17. Ouch, in those dropbacks. It's not going to be pretty. I've got to go Pats.
Yeah, this is going to be New England. The Patriots defense looked great last week against Miami. The Jets struggled to get anything going against Carolina. Not a good look. Carolina's not a good team. So I'm going to take the Patriots. I expect a big day out of Damian Harris. I believe I have him starting somewhere. One of my 13, 14 teams. Next up, another one that I think is a pretty obvious dunker. We're going to go Denver at Jacksonville. Jacksonville lost to, of course, Houston last week. Denver beat the Giants. Denver, no Jerry Jeudy for a while with a high ankle sprain.
As of right now, I really think you can't bet on the Jags. They might be worse than they thought they were going to be. So, sort of sense a theme here. You have that with the Jets. You have that with the Jaguars. Teddy is 22-3 against the spread on the road. And how about Lawrence locking in on one receiver all game in week 1? Brian, is anybody picking the Jags? Anyone? Bueller?
Not on this set, not on this show. I'm going to take Denver as well. Also, fun side note: the DJ Chark and Tony Jones Jr. for Joe Burrow and Latavius Murray trade that's in the works in our 16-teamer to help me out at quarterback. Your favorite player, DJ Chark, getting traded for what will be a usable asset on my. I thought about I offered you a trade for the garbage can, the trash can.
And then you canceled it.
I got Burrow instead. Well, I got Burrow. I don't need a second one. I got Burrow. I'm good. I'd rather have Burrow than the trash can, personally. For those of you who have not watched long enough, the trash can is Justin Herbert. I still believe he's going to bust. Didn't look great last week. Didn't look great, in my estimation. But I'm on Denver as well. I think Jacksonville is just avoid picking until further notice. I said last week with Houston, I don't expect to pick them all season. Since Houston already beat Jacksonville, I can safely say now I don't expect to pick Jacksonville the rest of the season. Hopefully for James Robinson owners, we see something a little bit better today out of him. As long as this game doesn't get ridiculously out of hand in the first quarter like it did last week.
Well, and depending upon the weather, you can see a lot of Robinson.
Yeah, I'm hoping Robinson does a good bounce back week. I've got him more places than I really should. Next up, this one should be one of the better ones of the day. Buffalo at Miami. Buffalo with the loss last week at Pittsburgh. Miami with the 1-point win in New England. Buffalo, you got to think is looking to come back. Miami, the only team in that division to win week 1. A win this week puts them at least 2 games up on Buffalo, and a game up on second place would be the winner of the Jets-New England game. But Miami offensively, not so great. No Will Fuller this week with a personal issue.
And Fuller might be out indefinitely now.
Yeah, I have not seen anything firm on what's going on. It was kept behind closed doors. But
Flores was talking that, they're all behind him, that it sounds like he's dealing with something very serious, and they're all throwing their support. So whatever's happening, it doesn't sound good.
Yeah, so we'll see what goes on there. But Joel, who's going to win this one?
This one's just one of those ones you don't have to blink. You don't have to think. I'm sorry to say, in the case of the team that you cheer for, Tua was dead last week when pressured. Buffalo will bring the pressure. Miami barely beat a rookie quarterback and they lost all of the key stats. I don't think Buffalo will be quite the same in the way of that the Miami is just gonna. I don't know what it is. All of a sudden, there's a switch that was thrown, and it's not been a good switch for the Dolphins. And I've got to pick the Bills.
I last year picked with my heart a lot and picked against Buffalo and pro Miami a lot. And I think that's a big reason why I lost our pick and pull. So I'm actually picking Buffalo as well. I don't like it, but I think Buffalo got embarrassed at home last week. They have super high expectations, and they got beat by a team that I think a lot of people are expecting to be worse than they looked in the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I'm going to take Buffalo for what it's worth. I'm also benching Myles Gaskin, whose jersey's behind me, for Javonte Williams in our 10-team Sport Shuffle Fans League because I think Denver's running backs will both go crazy. Microphone decides to jump. And I think Gaskin against that Buffalo defense is going to have a tough time. Najee Harris got shut down last week against Buffalo, and I think Gaskin and the Dolphins' run game will do the same. If they're going to win, it's going to be through the air. And right now I have a little more confidence in Josh Allen than Tua passing the ball. I think it'll be a defensive game, though. I think it'll be somewhere around like a 24-23 type of game, very close throughout. But only time will tell. I think last year both games were 50-plus points combined, so I'm expecting much, much better defense in this one. Next up, we go San Francisco at Philadelphia. San Francisco won against the Lions, but made it close at the end, kind of falling apart. Philadelphia embarrassed Atlanta, but it's Atlanta. So where do we feel about Philadelphia in terms of this game versus San Francisco? Or is this the start of a good run from Philly, or is it pump the brakes? You played Atlanta.
It's just easy to embarrass the Falcons. They're the Falcons, and as far as San Francisco goes, interesting to note that they did not fly back west after the Detroit game, and instead they flew to Greenbrier in West Virginia and stayed there all week. Sermon and Mitchell, we talked about them as far as fantasy goes, but might just run wild all over the Eagles, maybe not quite in the exact fantasy way you want, especially if you snagged Elijah Mitchell off of the waiver wires. But I think it's not going to be a good combination for the Eagles, as of course Mitchell was the sexy waiver claim, but don't be shocked if Sermon steals some of that value away, as we mentioned previously. Hurts has to go up against a defense this week that, actually exists, unlike previous week. So just for that thing alone, I'm going to have to pick the 49ers.
The San Francisco defense looked a lot worse after they had a corner go out. Name's escaping me right now, but he went out. I don't think he's going to play this week. I think this will be a higher scoring game. I'm going to take San Francisco as well, but I think this will be a good week for Miles Sanders. Kenny Gainwell might have a solid game as well in the backfield. And I wouldn't be surprised if you have a Goddard or a Rieger or Devontae Smith have a really nice game for Philadelphia. Deebo Samuels is going to come back to earth. Yeah, he had a 52% target share last week. That is not sustainable. Brandon Ayuk should be more involved. I wouldn't play him in fantasy this week. But yeah, that split in the backfield is going to be big. It's kind of risky to play Mitchell or Sermon this week. I think
if anyone did trade for Ayuk this week, that's still a pretty good pickup for their team.
Yeah, if you were able to pick him up on the cheap, and I kind of hope he has another bad week, because then I might start sniffing around and be like, hey, I'll throw this guy who's semi-productive for this guy who's been nothing. And that's how fantasy should work. Like we mentioned Antonio Gibson a little bit ago. And yes, I'm very high on him. Yes, the SpongeBob meme of him just sitting panicked in a diner while you watch him J.D. McKissick just score hurts my soul. But the fact of the matter is, I already said he's playing Buffalo next week. Buffalo shut down Najee Harris. I benched Myles Gaskin because I think Buffalo is going to shut them down as well. I think Gibson will have a bad week next week, and there's your buying opportunity. Buy low on him. You can get rid of something that, oh, hey, look, Sermon had a good week. You want this possible good thing for someone's been clearly terrible. And then when later in the season, when he's got like Jacksonville and Houston in back-to-back weeks, you go, see, it's great. I don't think they play those teams, but whoever they play. I looked at their postseason schedule for fantasy, and it's very, very nice for you if you get there. But I'm on San Francisco as well. Next up, LA Rams at Indianapolis. The Rams look damn good beating the Bears. The Bears did not look good outside of David Montgomery. So I think this is more of a
Trying
litmus
to say
test.
that they still suck.
Bears still suck. Other than David Montgomery, I fully expect the worst coach in football to be fired at some point in the next few weeks. This may be the last start for. I know we're not talking about the Bears, but it might be the last start for Andy Dalton because they got to do something. But the Rams look real good. Matt Stafford, Cooper Kupp looked great. Indianapolis didn't look so good, but you got to remember Wentz coming off an injury, first game with the team, playing Seattle, who's not a slouch. I think this will be a better test for the Rams. I don't know who I don't know if you're going to pick Indy, but
Yeah,
closer.
you're picking into your Wensing a lot in this game as you want to pick against the Rams, but it's tough to back Wentz. It's a coming out party for Stafford. Wentz was dinking and dunking, and the Colts offense was lukewarm at best last week in a middling matchup. Robert Woods, of course, was more a compliment than a foundational piece of the passing game, and it looks like Cooper Kupp is really the receiver we want from the offense this week. Just neither team really tends to jump out off the page at you, but I tend to feel a lot more confident picking Rams than I do with picking the Colts.
I'm going to pick the Rams as well. Before I go too far, here are the last 8 games for Washington this season, 7 of which are fantasy viable. Panthers, Seahawks, Raiders, Cowboys, Eagles, Cowboys, Eagles. If you have Gibson, that's the last fantasy relevant games. Fantasy playoffs. Eagles, Cowboys, Eagles. If you have Gibson and you make the playoffs, he's going to be very good for you. Might have some rough games before that, though. But going back to this one, I'm on the Rams as well. I think Indy's going to be a little bit better, but that defense is going to shut down your big targets like Michael Pittman on the outside. They're going to have to try and get Jonathan Taylor heavily involved to keep the Rams offense off the field. But you saw what happened last week, Tyler Lockett going crazy. I could see Robert Woods and or Cooper Kupp going crazy in a similar fashion this week. I'm going to take the Rams. Next up, we go to the upset winner from last week, the Las Vegas Raiders, going to Pittsburgh, who I think a lot of people expected to lose last week to Buffalo as well. Both teams looked better than expected, and now they go head-to-head in Pittsburgh. Joel, who do you got?
As you have, of course, the Raiders coming off an emotional Monday Night Football game. I tend to trust Ben at home. You kind of want to fade on the Raiders on the road. How much partying went on post Monday Night Football, plus the short travel, plus on the road, Eastern Standard Time. Oof. Carr to Waller was the highest target combination in week 1 with 19 targets. Absolutely sick. And you know why Waller is a top number 1 end for football fantasy wise. Steelers offense is going to be even more conservative this year, and that tends to hurt the potential for all the Steelers starting fantasy value. But still, all that being said, you've got the road trip, you've got, I don't know how much partying did or did not go on, and you have the almighty body clock. So I've got it pick Steelers, even with as shaky as Big Ben and Juju Smith-Schuster have looked some time out there. But you still have Claypool, and like I says, you got to go. You can't go against the almighty body clock.
Yeah, I'm going to take Pittsburgh as well. I just think that this is going to be Najee Harris's good game. I do expect Waller to be the best tight end this season now. 19 targets in week 1 is just absurd. I'm going to take Pittsburgh. Their defense is too good. Vegas, no Josh Jacobs, which will hurt that offense to have to rely on Kenyon Drake in full. But yeah, I'm just going to take Pittsburgh. Next up, Cincinnati at Chicago. Cincinnati 27-24 over Minnesota last week. We already mentioned the Bears still suck. So Joel, tell me why you're picking Chicago.
Yeah. It's funny that you should mention that. Cincinnati had 12 penalties in the first half versus Minnesota. Will that continue on the road? Small revenge game for Andy Dalton versus Cincinnati. Dalton, time to throw was the third fastest in NFL in week 1. And I tell you, yes, the Bears still suck. But when you're looking on the other side of the ball in Cincinnati, you can't have a lot of confidence in the Bungles. And as much as it pains me, as much as I have to hold my nose, I'm holding my nose, gulping. I'm picking the Bears to not suck this week.
I am picking the Bengals. I don't love it. But Joe Mixon looked really good last week. That whole Bengals offense looked solid. The passing game for the Bengals looked like a key strength, and the passing defense for the Bears looked like a complete weakness. I do expect Montgomery to have a good game, but as long as Andy Dalton is the quarterback, I'm going to have a hard time picking Chicago if they're playing anybody who is moderately decent. And Cincinnati might not be a world beater, but they're probably going to be a 6-7 win team this season. They're going to be competitive. So they're a decent team. It's not Jacksonville. It's not the Jets. It's not Atlanta. If they're playing something like that, even Detroit maybe, but unfortunately they're playing, I think, it's going to be a solid team. And I expect this to be a higher scoring game for Cincinnati than a lot of people would expect. And I think they kind of beat Chicago easily for our first disagreement of the day. Next up, Houston at Cleveland. Cleveland losing to Kansas City in a close battle. Houston dominating the terrible Jacksonville Jaguars. So who you got in this one?
Oh, as it's tough trying to look for any upside for the Texans. Cleveland goes from the hardest game on the schedule to the easiest. Houston value in market right now is going to be the highest it's going to be all season. Cleveland, Tampa Bay, and Green Bay are probably the biggest survivor picks. Cleveland offensive line is one of the best in football. Everything adds up, even to a question of whether Beckham does play or he doesn't play. It's hard to go against the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, Beckham will not be playing today. Still not 100% after that knee injury. I'm in a reverse survivor pool, a biggest loser pool where you pick like in a survivor pool where you pick the winner, you pick the loser every week. And if you get it right, you can't use the team again, but you keep going. Houston was my loser of the week, so I'm going to take Cleveland. I think this is an absolute slam dunk. If Cleveland plays anywhere near as good as they did last week against Kansas City, this won't be a game. This will be a roasting. So I'm going to take Cleveland. Nick Chubb should have a monster game, and there's really not a whole lot to say. Cleveland good, Houston not good. Don't play anybody from Houston in fantasy, even though Mark Ingram had a good week last week and Brandon Cooks had one big play. Just stop it. They're not playing Jacksonville every week. Next up, New Orleans at Carolina. Both teams 1-0 in the division. New Orleans a 38-3 smackdown to Green Bay. Carolina 19-14 over the Jets. One of those is definitely sounding more impressive from last week, but does Carolina pull another one out?
Well, of course, the big thing about Carolina is that virtual augmented reality Panther that you have to say was cool as all when you're just seeing the way technology is and what it can do. And you have to wonder if anybody wasn't prepared for that to come out. So like, oh, okay, yeah. So you actually have to love what they're doing with computers and all of the new gizmos that they tend to come up with. But actually talking about the game, we're not talking about we're not talking about the Panther. We're not talking about Panther. We're talking about the game. Of course, the big story going into week 2, I think, has to be the Marshawn Lattimore injury. Carolina will take advantage against a New Orleans secondary. Darnold was solid, not spectacular against a pushover Jets defense. Don't think that Carolina has an outstanding pass rusher defense because of week 1. They will get tested this week against the Saints, and we will have a better idea of where they are as far as the league's power ranking goes. And this game is a tough call because on one side you have Bridgewater, CMC. On the other side, though, you've got Jameis, and it's hard. It is very hard going against the Saints when you had Jameis Winston in a 5-touchdown performance the previous week. Granted, Carolina is a different opponent than previous week, but still, it's not what you would call a defense on the caliber of a Tampa Bay. So,
No.
got to go New Orleans.
Yeah, Carolina, they're in theory, not as good as Green Bay at all. And New Orleans smacked the Packers around. I expect to see more out of Jameis Winston. I know he had 5 touchdowns, but only 14 completions, 150 yards or so. I expect him to do a lot more today, at least through the air. Maybe not passing touchdown wise, but more efficiency, more yardage. Hopefully, still keeping that 0 in the INT column. We'll see what goes on from there. But Alvin Kamara should have a good game. Christian McCaffrey should have a very solid game for the Panthers. I've got the unfortunate decision between Wentz and Darnold and quarterback in the 16-teamer. As of right now, I'm sitting with Darnold thinking, hey, there's no Marshawn Lattimore. This defense might give up some points. The screen game to Christian McCaffrey. If he gets 2 screen passes and scores, those are still points for Darnold.
Trying to hold your nose and pick one, right?
Hey, there's a reason I traded Chark for Burrow because I wanted a quarterback I can go, you're my starter. I've got somebody as a backup. And
that's your teammate? That's your quarterback?
That's my quarterback, man. It will be at least as of tomorrow when the trade goes through. So today I am forced because of the voting on, we got to make sure it's not an unfair trade. It's like, yeah, I know. I get why that happens. But unfortunately, I have to play Sam Darnold, and I'm picking the Saints because, well, it's not going to be a good game for Carolina, I don't think. But if Darnold can get a couple
for Carolina, you're saying that it's Saint happening?
Yeah, if Darnold can get like 15 points, I'd be happy, honestly. I'll hope the rest of my team can pick me up. Next up, Minnesota at Arizona. Minnesota lost last week. Arizona with a very impressive win over Tennessee. The defense just choked them out. So who do you got in this one?
There's the whole question has to be Arizona D is what was surprising. Last week they pressured Tan on 40% of the dropbacks, sacked him 6 times, hit him 9 times, and they effectively shut down one of the best running backs in all of football in one, Derrick Henry. And for all those reasons alone, I know it's your thinking is, can you make any case at all for the Vikings? It's very hard not to pick the Cardinals, and that's why I'm picking the Cards.
I think this will be a better game than people are expecting. I think they kind of caught Tennessee off guard, put Tennessee in a bad position. Minnesota can throw the ball. They can run the ball. So if they get behind, they could catch back up. I think their offensive line will be fine. Arizona should score a lot of. I think this will be possibly the highest scoring game of the week, if I'm being honest. Arizona could be a team that cracks 40 this week, though. So I'm going to take Arizona in a shootout against Minnesota. I expect big weeks from pretty much everybody involved. Chase Edmonds, Dalvin Cook, DeAndre
that's
Hopkins.
The team. That's the game to have everyone in fantasy in.
Yeah, Thielen, Jefferson, even Rondale Moore and Christian Kirk. This might even be an AJ Green week. That's how crazy this game is. So if you've got someone from the Cardinals or the Vikings that is realistically viable, play him. I think this will be a good week for all involved, which would be good for me because I have a good amount of Adam Thielen. Next up, Atlanta at Tampa Bay. Atlanta bad, Tampa good. Not a whole lot of analysis needed on this one. So, Joel, obligatory question that I know the answer to. Who's got this one?
I do have a I'm think everybody knows where I'm going with picking this one. But some nuggets for this one. Atlanta got blitzed 3 times total by Philadelphia. Tampa Bay blitzed 50.7% of the time against Dallas, who has 3 good receivers. Tampa Bay will go after Matt Ryan. Atlanta couldn't block 4 against Philly. They're facing a little bit more. They're going to get pulverized in the first quarter. And even though Chris Godwin was not a focal point of the offense, but Mike Evans was, Godwin was the better pick, but Evans still is going to have some major outburst weeks in him just because of the quality of this offense. So don't sell low on him with Atlanta up next. And it's tough picking Atlanta even against the spread. As I showed the hat, I gotta go with Brady and the Bucks. I mean,
yeah, you gotta take the Bucks in this one. Fantasy wise, I would just say take Tampa's wide receivers. If you've got one between Evans, Godwin, and Brown, play him. If you've got Gronk, play him.
Any concern for AB this week?
No. Again, and this is something that Tom Brady said on the Let's Go show on Sirius XM. Godwin had over 100 yards. Brown had over 100 yards. Gronk almost had 100 yards. Evans, not so much, but he'll have his weeks. He's going to throw to who's open, and it's going to depend. If Godwin gets the coverage and he's not open and Evans is going to get the ball. Same with Antonio Brown. Same with Gronk. This is going to be a pass-heavy team. If you have Fournette and Rojo, if Fournette has a good week, it's probably a sell high time, honestly. Rojo out of the doghouse, but play them. You're going to have your weeks like last week, every now and again, where Mike Evans goes and gets you a pedestrian effort. It's going to happen. You're going to have to live with it. But I've got Antonio Brown. I'm not considering benching him unless I have a much better option. You know, the one place I do have him benched, my flex position is DeAndre Swift. I can live with, okay, Swift was not as good as Brown because Swift last week had, 10 catches or whatever it was.
Okay, so you're saying if you have a choice between Swift and Brown and flex, go Swift.
Keep an eye on the injury report. He is questionable, but it's been a nagging groin injury that he should be fine. Keep an eye on it and have a backup plan because it's a Monday night
nagging
game.
Injury or a nagging injury?
Nagging. But keep an eye on the injury report and have a backup plan in that league. I also have Robert Tonyan, so I can play him as well. Also, thank you for leaving Robert Tonyan for only $6 on the waiver wire for me. I know you put a claim in for him, but I got him, and I desperately needed it because my tight end was Ferkser, and now I have Tonyan. I feel a lot better about my life. I'm on Tampa Bay as well, if that wasn't clear.
Hashtag Tennessee. SpongeBob meme.
Yes, many of them. There's a SpongeBob meme for everything. Tennessee at Seattle is our next one. Tennessee looked really, really bad last week. Seattle looked really, really good. Seattle with the home opener today. Any hope for Tennessee here?
As I'll tell you, I know you're. Are you starting to feel a little bit worried about your favorite running back flying?
Nope. Not yet. And, Arizona's a good defense. Seattle's a good defense. But after that, Indy, the Jets, and Jacksonville, the 3 weeks after, he will start to explode. He's also still got games against Houston coming up. So he'll be fine. I'm not worried about him yet.
As to this game in Seattle, Seattle has been unbelievable in home openers since 2008. Great home field advantage. Tough trip to make for the road team. Easy for me to say. Still waiting for some of the caffeine molecules to end up coming with my cerebral cortex. However, Seattle is 1-4. ATS last 5. They'll try to get Henry more carries, and he just didn't look good last week. Tennessee doesn't have to worry about Chandler Jones this week, so that's a little bit better. New Tennessee offensive coordinator was at the Raiders a while back, and he hasn't been good. And I tell you, I know you tend to want to lean the Titans, but I just can't. I know Seattle has been shaky, but usually that's later in the season. This is still early. This is the home opener. I got to pick up Seattle to pick up. I have to pick up Seattle and also have to pick up my words and my vocabulary, which apparently is not doing too good right now. I have to pick up Seattle at home to have a good start. Yeah,
I'm on Seattle as well. I think the home opener.
Hang on, I'm rebooting myself.
Yeah, the home opener with fans back in that stadium is going to be a big deal. I think Tennessee puts up a much better fight. I think Henry does get much more involved. They need to not panic if they go down early. They were down 17 in the first and pretty much stopped running the ball. Derrick Henry needs 20 to 25 carries at a minimum. He got 17 last week in the entire game. Keep him involved. Keep that offense on the field, the Seattle defense on the field, because they're not very good. Russell Wilson start season's great. So right now he's a world beater. If you keep him on the sideline, he can't beat you. But that Lockett and Metcalf have to be in your lineup as well as Russell Wilson. But I'm going to take Seattle, but I think it'll be a much closer game than last week for Tennessee.
Okay, I rebooted my vocabulary.exe.
All right, 404 error not found is no longer in place. Next up, Dallas at the Los Angeles Chargers, the home opener at SoFi for the Chargers, their first game in the Rams' new building. And I say that because it is the Rams' new building. We'll see if 12 people or more show up because they've always had issues getting a fan base in LA. Dallas coming off the very tight loss to the Buccaneers. The Chargers coming off the very tight win against the Turds. Not for nothing. I think Dallas had a tougher matchup and looked better in week 1. The Chargers, though, are a trendy pick that a lot of people think are going to be a playoff contender and challenge the Chiefs. So, Joel, what do you got here?
So, which team am I picking? Am I picking the team that's formerly the Superchargers, or am I picking the team that's But looking back into the look back glass, Herbert was least pressured QB in all of Week 1. 14-19 third down conversions, only pressured on 6 of 49 dropbacks. Chargers controlled the game out, gaining the Washington football team by 151 yards, converted 70% of third downs, dominated the time of possession. You might see a better game from Zeke, which is good for fantasy owners. Dallas showed up against Tampa Bay. Let down game for Dallas, I really think, after starting the year on Thursday night football. I've got to pick the Chargers.
Dallas looked great against Tampa, and they've had 10 days to prepare. I am picking Dallas. The Chargers may be my Buffalo this year, where I pick against
So
them
you
so
don't
often
think
it
there's
kills
going to
me.
be any letdown?
I don't. And by that, I mean, I think that offense is just too good. They're going to put up a ton of points. I still don't believe the Chargers offense is anything special. Austin Eckler was good, but not great last week. Justin Herbert was decent, not spectacular. I think this will be a fantasy bonanza. I think if you have anybody in this game, Jared Cook, Keenan Allen, anybody on the Cowboys side, Zeke, Cooper, Lamb, any of those guys, Prescott, of course, you wanted them in your lineups. You want to be counting those points because it's going to be a high-scoring game. But I think Dallas will come out on top because they have a better offense by a good margin. Next up, Kansas City at Baltimore, the Sunday nighter. Kansas City coming off the win, Baltimore coming off the shocking loss in Baltimore, home opener. Who you got?
It's very hard to go against the Chiefs, even with as much power as the Ravens tend to have. But Ravens can't afford another loss after that WTF ending in Week 1. The Ravens want to do the impossible. It's going to be up to playmakers like Marquise Brown and makeshift running game that has been hobbled together with the likes of Murray, formerly the Saints, and Bell, formerly of a lot of teams, but mostly recently of the Chiefs. And it's tough picking the Ravens to come out the winner with all their injuries putting behind them as not an 8 but a 16 ball. In this case, I just tend to think they have a lot to catch up on with all the injuries that their backfield ended up having even before the season started. And then early season, it's just going to be hard for them to kind of catch up, and just have to pick the Chiefs.
Yeah, Baltimore's not built to pass the ball to stay in games, and Kansas City is going to force that to happen. I'm going to take Kansas City. Tyson Williams should have a decent week. I don't know if I'm starting him anywhere in fantasy. I do have him. I'm hoping he has a decent week, and I can sell high. I'm trying to get out of the running back.
I'm hoping for a good game from Marquise Brown in my flex position.
Marquise Brown, I think, will be the high performer, not named Lamar Jackson for the Ravens. But I just think Kansas City is too good of a team here. And last up, Detroit at Green Bay. Detroit looked bad, but came back against San Francisco to lose by 8. Green Bay just looked bad. Not going to sugarcoat it. They looked like a team that does not belong in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers looked like a bum on and off the field. I'm sure you saw the picture and memes going around all week where he looked like a homeless person. Does Green Bay come back and make a real performance this week, or is what we saw week 1 maybe what's really going on in Green Bay?
The number one question that has to be asked about this game, Flyin, is does Rodgers give a bleep about football at this point? Last game was the worst scoring margin and I'm coming up with new numbers here. 4th worst passer rating in his career. This game is more about Green Bay and Rodgers than it's about the Lions. And while a Lions win wouldn't be totally shocking, like maybe me actually putting some words together and saying them right, it's still hard to pick the Lions winning at Lambeau. And for that reason alone, I got to pick Green Bay, even though you tend not to have as much confidence in Aaron Rodgers as I think you used to.
Yeah, I got to take Green Bay as well. I just think that they're the better team. Even though it looked real bad last week for the for the Packers. I just think they're the better team. Unfortunately for the Lions, I think the full wrath of Aaron Rodgers after he might have checked out, but I don't think everybody's saying, "Oh, he's a quitter. He doesn't have anything. He's garbage." I think that's going to resonate with him. Unfortunately, I am playing against. I have and I'm playing against a Rodgers Devontae Adams stack, so there's going to be a very awkward sweet spot, I think, to win one and not lose the other. But I don't like my odds where I'm facing Adams and Rodgers. I like my odds where I have him because, well, I think they're going to go absolutely crazy this week. Rodgers, big rebound game, and Detroit, not very good. So with that, that is our picks for week number 2. Joel, we're going to ask you to string together just a few more words with your final thoughts.
And my final thoughts is going to be, who's going to have the better week out of these two individuals? Of course, the much maligned and questionable DeAndre Swift with everything and all the clouds, the gray clouds looming over him, or the super hot waiver wire pickup Elijah Mitchell, as it will be interesting between those two individuals fantasy-wise. Which one will have the better week for week 2? And that's my final thought.
If Swift plays, I'm going to say DeAndre Swift, and it's not going to be close. That's my prediction on your final thought. For mine. I'm either a very curmudgeonly person when it comes to stuff like this, and I hate joy, or I'm right. We went to the Rays game on Friday night. It was a great game, 7-4, 10th inning win for the Rays. A walk-off by Brett Phillips, a 3-run homer. Very exciting. The Rays came back from 3 down in the bottom of the 9th. Great game. My issue was with the fans. It was a rare, fairly packed house for the Rays, and that's saying something. They said after the game, a few of the players were like, "Oh, the fans were great. The fans were great," and they were very loud. They were very into the game, but they kept doing the wave. I don't mind the wave once or twice. I don't like when it's constantly tried, and when it goes, it just goes and like circles the stadium 6-7 times. No. And then people get mad when you don't do it. It's like, I'm not getting up because some idiots got up over there a few seconds ago. I'm not going to do it. I remember when it went around the stadium multiple times, it was between innings, and the first part of it, I think it was the 5th inning, and it went around 5, 6, 7 times. It was absurd. It was just too much. My issue, though, is not so much with that, but in the bottom of the 9th, when the comeback is on, the section down in front to the right, we were in 129. It was like the front end of 127. It's trying to get the wave going during the comeback. It's like, no, we want to watch the game. And they were getting mad at the people around them. Get up and do the wave. Get up and do it. Shut up. Watch the game.
Maybe some people had to consume too much adult beverages.
They might have. I mean, I know it's a very old man yells at clouds take. Get off my lawn, but damn, it's a game. It's a comeback game. You know, if they were down 18-1, you want to do the wave in the bottom of the 9th inning. If you're still there, go ahead. Bases loaded, no outs, down by 3. Is not the time to try and do the wave, you morons. But yeah, old man yells at clouds. Ryan hates the wave, and that's my final thought.
Does Brittany agree with you on that? Or?
We didn't really talk about it. She said it was one of the better games she's been to, which is a good thing. Okay. It was a great game, and tickets are dirt cheap. So it's a first place team you can go see for $27, including parking. For
I guess just the main reason why I haven't gotten to baseball is because I know that if they tend to get to the World Series, it's probably not going to end well.
If there's a year, this might end well. I think this is it.
Okay, I hope so, because it's just, I don't know, that was just it was such a letdown when all of a sudden you're rooting for them and they just run into the buzzsaw known as the Dodgers, and it was something sort of I could tell right away about the second game. I'm like, I don't think this is going to happen. It just, there's a certain air, a certain aura that, you know, kind of you tend to sort of feel, and sometimes it feels like, okay, yeah, and this is going to happen, and then you feel like,
There's something weird going on in Tampa, though. There just is. The
Rays I hope so.
The Rays won the American League. The Bucks won the Super Bowl. The Lightning are back-to-back champs. Even the freaking Rowdies are winners. So I expect
time for the Rays to finally beat the slump.
I expect the Rays to make a very deep run again. It's going to be interesting to see. I think they're going to have a good matchup the rest of the way. I really do. If they face the Dodgers, I'm not real thrilled about it. But even if they face the Giants, who are technically the better team on the record, I like the odds. It's just I think this team has something special going on. The magic of watching them come back time and time and time again. Most comeback wins in the league. I think it's going to be a good thing for the Rays. So only time will tell.
Have to call it the Brady effect, right?
Yeah, we got a couple more weeks left in the baseball season. Only a couple weeks into the football season. Kickoff is in about 2 hours and 20 minutes at this time.
And you had all the ridiculous football scores where one team beat the other team by 90 points yesterday, I think.
Unrelated. Did you see the Oklahoma interception?
Mm-mm.
Oh, my God. Dude catches it diving away like this. Catches the ball like this. Tucks it in for a pick to steal the game. Probably the best interception I've ever seen. If you haven't looked at it, Oklahoma interception versus Nebraska, it'll probably pull it up. Definitely,
I was listening to a little bit of the college blitz, I think, on XM, but
yes.
those
Also,
towards the end of the night when you're like falling asleep.
Also, for what it's worth, DeAndre Swift, great week. That's what we're gonna go with. I need it in some places that I'm not proud of. So with that is our time. I'm sure my grandmother, if she watches this far, is very upset with all the moving I've done in the last few minutes because she hates when I move because I don't know. She has weird.
We'll be back in a more normal time next.
Yes,
next
we'll be
week.
back on Wednesday to recap this week and go into the Thursday night game between Carolina and Houston that we've all been waiting for. Get your popcorn ready because it'll be over by halftime. With that, we go.